So when I came, Iraj, one day he says, "Come in." So he took me into his cabin and says, "Merwan, have a look at this. These are things that we have found. Just have a look. Do you think it's that book that those people are eating our heads about?"
Mm-hmm.
Because there
The
was
missing book.
The missing book.
Yeah.
Because there was a hue and cry that what has happened and that the Manli are sitting over it and
Mm-hmm.
that they don't want to bring this out, and there was quite a lot of hubbub going on, you know.
Are you saying then in 1971?
Probably 1970 or 71.
But at that date, Erich did not know where that missing book was?
No. Nobody knows.
Mate, well, I must put quickly in here so you know exactly where I came into a picture with Erich on this. I think it was the day after I arrived. In other words, 2 days after Baba had dropped the body.
Yes.
I arrived the first day after. And we had a little bit of quiet time. There were not too many people from the West. The people from India hadn't formed a line yet. So it was quiet, and I suddenly thought, good heavens, now certainly it's time for the book to be brought out and edited and put into print.
That's right.
So I said this to Erich, and he said, "Good Lord, Don, you're right. It is the time." And he said, "Well, the book is in a safe deposit box in Bombay, and Elizabeth Patterson has the key to it." And he said, "You'll be going back to America. As soon as you arrive, will you telephone to Elizabeth Patterson and say, 'Elizabeth, will you arrange for the key to be brought over because we must get it out of the safe deposit box in the bank in Bombay.'" I telephoned Elizabeth Patterson. As soon as I got there, I knew Elizabeth well. And Elizabeth said, "Don, it is not like that. I had the key, but Baba sent a message to me to give the key to," and she said, "I cannot remember who it was, but I gave the person designated by Baba the key, and they went to the safe deposit box, and we closed out the box. So I don't know where the book is." And when I told this to Erich immediately, Erich says, "Good Lord, now we've lost the book."
That's right.
This is the story, straight from Erich and Elizabeth
But
Patterson.
there's a sequel to that.
Okay, you tell the sequel now. We're putting the story together.
All right.
Mhm.
So what happened is that Iraj, then when this happened,
Mhm.
it was in the Central Bank of India locker.
Mhm.
They were able to locate the particulars of the locker.
Yes.
And fortunately, one of the Baba lovers was a big officer in the bank.
Mhm.
So through him, it was tried to be located. What happened to the locker?
Yeah.
And he gave information that on such and such a day, or whatever, that locker was operated, and the contents were removed, and the locker was closed and handed back to the bank.
And he did not know who the person was who came. Hmm?
And I think they knew because the name gets registered there, and it was Ramju.
Ramju.
Yeah,
Abdullah.
Ramju Abdul. So
Then what happened to Ramju?
now I will tell you that. So what happened is that Baba was in Bombay, and Baba was staying in Nariman's house. I think it was, I don't know which year it was, in sometime in the 60s, I think. And Baba had come to Bombay, I think, to celebrate Nariman's birthday, so-called celebration. He went to Bombay usually to contact Mas and all that. So Baba was in one of those visits to Bombay, and whenever he went there, he stayed in Nariman's house. So this is what Parviz Talati tells me. Parviz Talati, by the way, is here, so you could get the story directly from her,
Yeah.
because she told us this.
Yeah. We'll try to do that.
You know Parviz Talati?
I've met her.
Yeah,
Yeah. Long ago.
that's right. So she says that one day Ramju Abdullah came along. Whenever Ramju came to Bombay, he would go and stay in their house in Bombay. Ramju was very close to the family.
I see.
From the time of Parviz's father, Nawal, in days in Nasik. So they were very old friends. And Ramju, whenever he went to Bombay, would stay with Dina Talati, who was the wife of Nawal. Nawal died long back. Anyway, so she says that one of these occasions Ramju came along to Bombay, and Ramju stayed in their house as usual. Then one day he went out somewhere, and then he returned with a big sort of bundle, and he put it under his pillow.
Baba had Arish show me that bundle once several years before when we were in Arish's shack, and Arish went to a big wooden box and took it out. It wasn't a big bundle, it was a rather small one, tied with string. Yes, so maybe so on.
Yeah. So why didn't you grab that bundle?
Because Baba
and
said,
just run away with it.
Baba said, Don, the time is not now,
right.
perhaps in the future.
Oh,
That was the end of the story.
He's
I
seen
saw
it.
the bundle.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
We were not even allowed to look at it.
Well, I was allowed, and I know the size of that bundle, and it's important.
All right, then you better know of it. Anyway, so Ramju got this thing out, and so he brought this bundle, and he had kept it under his pillow. So it was evening time, and Parviz's mother and Parviz herself, they came and they were talking with Ramju. Then it was time to retire. So they said, Ramju, why do you put that bundle there under your pillow? It will be very uncomfortable. Why not put it on? So he says, no, it's better left here. I don't mind it. Just leave it there. That's all he said to them. So they didn't pursue the matter. Next day, a car came along. This is what she says. It was Nariman's car. And Ramju got in the car to go to see Baba. Baba was visiting Bombay then. You follow?
Yes.
For Nariman's birthday or something.
But all of this is before, though, it was taken out of the locked safe deposit box
No.
in Bombay.
After.
No, Don.
Just listen.
Yes, but you said Baba, he was there to visit Baba, or you mean to visit Baba's grave, or what?
No.
No, this is when Baba was visiting Nariman's house.
Yes.
Baba was at Nariman's place.
Yeah.
And he had sent for Ramju.
Yeah, but I got to get one thing straight here, because I thought you were telling me that the banker's records said that it was Ramju Abdullah who took the package under Baba's instructions out of the bank.
Yeah. That's what we presume.
Yeah.
Because what follows, I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
So, this is what happened. Parviz tells me that that night Ramju slept with that package under his pillow.
Next day goes in the car.
Next day he takes that bundle along with him in the car. Baba has sent the car for him. He goes and visits Baba. And after he had met Baba, he comes back and there is no bundle in his hand. But during that, later on that day, he tells Parviz and Dina Talati, do you know what that package was? So they said, no. Well, it was the book. That's what he said. So,
and he had delivered that
and
to
they
Baba.
said, what happened? He says, I've delivered it to Baba. That's all he said.
What year was that?
I don't know. I don't remember.
What year did Ramju pass away?
He passed away in 66 or something.
Okay, so Don, do you understand this?
Yeah,
This is
sure.
confusing.
Yeah, no, I've got it straight now.
This is while Baba was there.
So Elizabeth Patterson herself in '69 did not even know that that she did know, but I thought the implication was that it had been picked up and taken away very shortly before Baba dropped the body.
This wasn't.
So this was considerably before that the book disappeared.
Yeah.
And the last anyone knows, it went to Baba's hands.
It went to Baba's hands, and when Baba must have taken it from Ramju, there may not be anybody else present.
Mm-hmm.
And then what Baba did with the book,
nobody knows. There it disappears.
So
Okay, so all of this is 3 years earlier than I thought it was.
At least, because Ramju
Yeah.
passed away in '66, it was probably even before that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it might be connected to what you say. Then Baba must have kept it or brought it here. We don't know. There was no lead after that, as far as we know.
So I may have seen it in Arish's shack after it was removed from the bank in Bombay. So I may have been one of the last persons to see the book.
Did you not confirm with Terach again?
No.
Why didn't you?
Well, no, I simply said to Arish, Elizabeth says that... well, it is very confusing.
That's what Baba did. He brought in a whole cloud of confusion amongst everybody, and in that the book has gone. I think it might corroborate if you recollect what year you saw the bundle and what happened, and we don't know.
Well, I know approximately. Let me tell you that little bit of the story and how it happened. We had not been very far into the publishing and making public the first edition of God Speaks when Ivy Deuce, so of course this is about 54, 55, something like that at the latest. Ivy Deuce said to me on one occasion, Don, you get to see Baba very frequently now, and now you and I have finished the big job of editing God Speaks. So when you see Baba next time, will you say, Baba, you were very pleased, we understand, with the editing work we did on God Speaks. Now we have completed it. Baba, would you entrust to us the editing of your book so it can now be brought out? And so I have to confess, Merwan, I was not enthusiastic about carrying this message to Baba, but I was a good soldier, and she was the boss of the Sufis, and Baba said, give her every help you can, Don. And so I felt duty-bound to bring this message from Ivy to Baba. And this was the only time, now this had to have been, I would say no later than 56 or 57. So this was the only time when I arrived in India to visit Baba where I was brought to see him immediately, not in Mandali Hall, but sitting in Arish's shack. And this surprised me because always before I was always in Mandali Hall where I would meet Baba. So at any rate, after Baba puts his questions, you know, sleeping, digesting, toilet, and so on, then he starts to talk about other things. And then I remember I must put Ivy's question early, otherwise I'll forget it, because I want to forget it, frankly. And so I put it to Baba, and Baba made no answer to me, and he gestured to Arish. Arish got up in Baba's shack, walked to the opposite end of the room, where there was a big wooden box with, I think, a lid that opened up on the top. He took out a package, put it in Baba's hands, and Baba said, Don, here is the book.
Oh, he said that?
Yes, right. And it was in Baba's hands, and he was showing it to me. And then he said, Don, this is not the time for it. Perhaps later. Gave it back to Arish. Arish put it back in the wooden box. So all this was in the mid-50s somewhere. So it was considerably before.
It could be that Baba must have visited in the 50s and Ramju must have handed it over to Baba then.
Well, but in the 50s, I had the impression from the telephone conversation with Elizabeth Patterson that it had been in the locked storage box considerably after I saw it in the 50s. I had that impression, but she did not say last time I saw it was 56 or something. Not at all.
It could have gone back to the locker.
It could have gone back. I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah.
But my impression from the conversation with both Irish and with Elizabeth is that they had both known of the presence of the book in, certainly within the last 2-3 years of Baba's dropping the body. So their knowledge that it was still in existence and in the locked box in Bombay had to have been later, much later than when Baba showed it to me.
Anyway, this is the story I got from Parviz.
Well, I am delighted to know that it was Ramju who took it out of the locked box.
But it may
and
not
gave
be
to
the
me.
last entry. There might be a return to the locker and then again.
Sure.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we don't know all this. It's lost in antiquity.
It's lost, yeah. Principal thing is it was put in
Yeah,
Baba's
but
hands.
then later on when people asked Erach, you see Erach himself in the last days in Guru Prasad once asked Baba, seeing his delicate condition of health, Baba, what about the book? What do you want to do? Where is it? And people will ask. So Baba says it's well looked after. Don't worry. That's what Erach tells us. So he may not be knowing what Baba did with the package after it was in Erach's possession for some time.
Well, the last Darish knew it was back in the locked box in Bombay. This is absolutely clear from my conversation when we were both at Baba's entombment.
So it went back.
It had to have gone back.
Yeah,
it had to have. Erish and Elizabeth were very clear that it had recently been in the locked box.
I see. So, well, that's how it...
Yeah.
But Ramju died before Baba passed away. So, I don't know. It's all very confusing.
Yeah.
It's all very confusing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is a digression from what I was telling you.
Yes, please.
So, Erach tells me, just look at this. Do you think it is the book? Now, Erach asks me this question, so he may not have seen
this recently discovered manuscript.
Yeah,
But do you see what he's saying?
Yeah.
If Erich asked him, do you think it's the book? Maybe Erich never saw the actual pages of the book.
I am sure Erish didn't. It was not open.
It was not allowed.
And Erish never told me anything about seeing the book.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
And Baba didn't volunteer to have Erish untie the package.
That's right. So
But I can tell you that, to me, obviously the package consisted, first of all, of probably 2 school notebook size things, maybe so thick. On this, there were piled, obviously in this package, because the packing paper followed the contours of what was inside, on top of what was approximately the thickness of 2 school-size notebooks, was a thicker but a much smaller dimensional block. And I said to myself, well, Baba probably started with the big books and he ran out of paper and was using smaller ones. And I made, just because my mind works this way, I made a quick mental estimate.
Was there loose sheets?
The package was not. The package
No,
was
on the
not
top.
open.
Did you follow the contours on the top? Or the
I could
smaller
follow.
package?
No, the smaller top part was almost all the same size.
All the same.
And I thought to myself, these are block notebooks, block note paper that Baba then used. I saw no indication that they were probably spiral bound or anything like that. But let me tell you, because this to me is the most important point that unconsciously I gathered. These were, of course, all written in longhand. And so I made a quick calculation into my mind, because I was so busy writing things under Baba's direction. Pages and how many pages was important constantly. So I just made a calculation and said, well, that's in Baba's longhand, written as longhand. And the total, if it were then typed off, because I did so much typing off into computers by that time, what was in there certainly could not be more than 200 pages of printed material. So it was a relatively short work. And so, you know, when, for instance, I think the thing that interested me greatly, when Bao said, Baba gave me notes which are included in the nothing and the everything, and it constitutes 10% of the book. 10% of 200 pages is 20 pages. So 20 pages, just as a rough estimation of, I think it's about 400 pages in the nothing and the everything, is a very small quantity. So I asked Bao, can you identify what is what the passages are in your book? I didn't say Bao is a pretty small portion and we should know which is Baba and which is Bao. So I said, can you identify which is the material in the printed book that came from notes from Baba? And he said, no, because the notes were stolen, and I have no way of that. So what those 20 pages mixed into the 400 and where they are, we will never know. So here's another thing.
Baba had given him points, and then he elaborated it in his book. In his book. But they were just points that Baba gave.
They were points that Baba gave him. But
and he tells Baba, Baba, I don't understand what all this is. Baba says, don't interrupt.
You will understand.
Yeah, just take down those points.
Yeah.
You will understand later.
And those written points taken under dictation from Baba, he says, were then stolen.
That's right.
And he dictated from, wrote his The Nothing and the Everything, including from memory Baba's points. But he does not remember anything about where those points were included.
Why does Baba does this to us?
He likes to keep us on our toes, scratching our head.
He won't let be pinpointed.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what happened is that Meheraj gives me this, and he said, do you think this is the book? And I tell Meheraj, how should I know? I have no idea what the book was, and how could I say that? So he says, okay.
Don't go into hysterics, little bear. He gets so amused by how Baba handles things sometimes.
So he says, just go through it and see what you think about it. So then, and he left me with those books. So there were 2 notebooks, foolscap size, ruled. You know, you used to get. And in very fine handwriting, somebody had written those. It was a transcription, obviously, of something very profound. And I just turned over the pages and couldn't make head or tail of what it was. And I said, after just cursorily going through it, then Meheraj comes back after some time and says, well, what do you think? I said, Meheraj, I have really no idea. I don't know what the book was about, and how could I say that this is the book or something? So he said, all right, just let it be. He just put the thing back in that.
Arish was busy.
He was terribly busy. So he just put them back in that little leather bag, and then I just left. Later on, what happened was that Rhoda Dubash came from Karachi and settled down here along with Hadi Dubash. And she would come to the trust office and pester Meheraj quite a bit. Give me some work, Meheraj, give me some work. I want to do office work.
I want to serve Baba.
Yeah. So Meheraj would not know what to give her. The trust hadn't started functioning very well. There wasn't much to do. Suddenly he got a bright idea. He says, to get her off my chest, he brought out these books that he had shown me. And he tells her, do one thing now, Rhoda. Take these books, these are handwritten pages, type them out, fair, and make 3 copies of them, and do that.
And so she didn't pester him for 2 years again.
That's right.
Do you remember the writing, the handwritten? Was it handwritten in English or Gujarati or Hindi or all the different languages?
I'll show you that I have it.
Oh.
If you want, I'll show you. don't worry. So anyway, so then he gives her those books, and then he says, I'll give you Balnath to assist, and he'll assist you in doing this, but you do it quietly. We don't want this to be sort of tom-tommed about.
Sure.
So they sat in the room which is now at the backside of trust office, that Happy Library or something.
Mm-hmm.
And in that room they both sat for a couple of years, I think. And Bal would give her the book, and she would start typing, and he would help her to type it out.
Mm-hmm.
And she very meticulously typed out these handwritten pages.
And so Balnath too is involved in that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they reproduced every word from those handwritten books in a typing format.
Yeah. And she did a little correction here and there because there were spelling mistakes and other things. So such correction she did. But the problem was that there's lots of Gujarati in it. Handwritten Gujarati. So there was no Gujarati keys on the typewriter. So she left blanks and then very meticulously filled them up in Gujarati in her own handwriting.
Beautiful.
So we have the full record of all that in her typed out version. This went on for a couple of years, and Neeraj had respite from Rhoda, and this job got completed. After the whole typing was done, Neeraj asked her to get it bound, so she got 3 sets bound of those books, and then Neeraj kept them in his cupboard here. Later on, then I started to come. So Neeraj says, now you have a month's vacation, go through this now. The thing that I had shown you, remember? I said, yeah. So these are now fairly typed out. So try and do something and see if there's anything new in it. So I went through all these things and did some preliminary sort of editing. And then after doing the whole thing, I bring it out to him, and I tell him, Neeraj, I've done this, what do I do? He says, do you find anything new? I said, the whole thing is quite new. Should I read it out to you? So I began to read. I started with the first few sentences, and he said, enough. We'll see about it later. So
Harish is still busy.
Very busy. He was getting more and more busy with more and more pilgrims arriving.
Yeah.
There were no holidays then. 7 days a week, 12 hours a day they were attending pilgrims.
You're Harish.
So it was lying there. So then it just remained. I went back, and then later on I came and settled down here. I'm a little confused about the timing. I may have done it after I settled down, the editing, or perhaps earlier.
But Erich was still alive.
It was all there, my editing in the one of Rhoda's things. So he says, now I keep telling him, Neeraj, I've done that editing. Do you think we should bring it out? He says, is there anything new in it? I said, it's quite a different thing, and there are certain things which are a little controversial. He says, okay, we'll see it later. And he kept putting it off and kept putting it off. One day finally I again tell him, very recently in the 90s, Neeraj, it's time we did something while you people are around, that we should get this out, because who will then be able to give their opinion on it? So he says, if it's not very controversial, then do it. So, and I said, Ward is around here. At that time, Ward was a bit free, and I could take Steve Klein's help. They had come both. So they are quite good in English.
Yeah,
Ward is a professor of English.
Superb.
Yeah. So then he said, okay, go ahead. So then I asked the publication committee. We had formed a publication committee at that time. We have this, are you happy with this? So he said, okay, if you doing the editing, we don't mind. So we got the go ahead, and then Bod and I started to edit it. In the meantime, Bhav had gone to the West. So I wrote to Bhav a letter saying that we are doing this work, and when you come over, I would like to show it to you. So we hadn't even started much, and in the meantime, Bhav returned. So when he came, he said, what was that you were referring to? So I brought out those books and gave it to him. He says, I'll take this to my office and see. He took those books, he took them to his place. A week later he comes and says, Merwan, this is a miracle. This is 100% of the book that Baba wrote, because it's all the points are there which are full in here, and what I had was only 10%. This is the book. I said, wow, I don't know anything. But this is what we have with us, and this is how it is. So he then says, all right, now I'm going to edit this. So,
Bao said it.
Yeah. So for a year he stopped all his correspondence to the West. Do you remember? There was 1 year when he wouldn't correspond.
I remember that, but I didn't know what the reason was.
He was closeted in his office,
Yeah.
and with Ward and he working together,
Yeah.
they just raced through the whole manuscript, and Ward was pulling his hair. He says, oh, you cannot do this. He says, you just carry on what I'm telling you, just do this. So they did a first edit of the whole thing. Then, and after that, he handed over the whole thing to me, Bhav. He says, now you go through this. So then I said, Bhav, this needs to be properly edited. So he says, all right. So he gave me Ward to assist me. And then Ward and myself sat and broke our heads for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, trying to put that in a presentable language. The
Was
book,
there any more discussion between yourselves as to whether it was or was not the
I'll tell
book?
you. So this is yeah. So Eraj, where was I?
You and I think you
Yeah,
and Ward
I
are
and
busy
Ward
editing it together.
Busy editing it.
3-4 years, you
Yeah.
said.
And Bhav was very impatient. He says, what the heck are you all up to? I finished the whole thing in 4 or 5 months, and this is now so many years. What are you doing with it? And I said, Bhav, it's very involved. It needs proper sentence structure. The whole book sometimes has no paragraphs. A sentence would carry on for a whole page.
Sounds like Irish.
It does.
When I was editing God Speaks and the Irish sentence structure would go, sometimes it'd be a whole long paragraph.
This was a couple of pages long sometimes.
Yes, incredible.
And the worst part was there was brackets
Mhm.
in those sentences.
Yeah.
And after those brackets, there were other brackets which included those brackets. and the verb was right on the top. And after the whole thing, the sentence ended right at the bottom. And if it was left for the public to read this, they would miss the sentence
Sure.
ending. You know?
They go to sleep and go to bed.
Yeah. And there were no paragraphing, no corrections, no. It was just raw text.
Raw material.
Given at an incredible pace, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. As was the style of Baba. So we were doing all this. In the meantime, one day, Janet was very inquisitive. She says, what are you both doing?
Janet Judson?
That's right. So I said, we are doing this old discourses, some work connected with Baba in the early 20s, it seems. So I said, oh, Mani had passed away then. So she said, you know, in Mani's records, there are some handwritten pages by Baba. Are you interested to see them? So I said, I don't know, just show me. So she brought a Xerox of that. And I began to read that. And it was very much connected to what we were doing. So I said, yes, I would like to have this. So she said, okay, have it.
Same material now is in God's hand?
No.
The book in God's hand? Same thing?
That's right, in God's hand.
Same material?
Same material. That was that.
That's what Janet brought.
Yeah. So then I said, where is the original of this? What authority is this? So then she gave me the original Baba's handwritten pages. And then what we find is that in the last portion of these 2 volumes that we were editing, these pages have been included in that.
Oh.
So they were written afterward?
Huh?
The books must have been written after those handwritten pages?
Yeah. So some sentences are verbatim repeated there.
Yeah.
Some are edited in a very starkly contrasting thing. And so it was all there in the last part of the book, which there is series 15. There are 15 series to that book. So in the last series, this portion of Baba's, it was 39 pages of Baba's handwritten, was incorporated in.
Yeah.
So that
But the 2 handwritings are different. The big manuscript is one type of handwriting.
Yeah.
Baba's 39 pages are definitely
yeah.
Baba's.
There's a sheet on top of in Ramju's hand, which says, it's in God's hand. There is
I've
that
seen it.
title. So it says that these are handwritten pages of Baba sometime in the 20s.
Yeah.
So by having that there, we got the authorship of these 2 books. It has no beginning and it just suddenly ends.
Yeah.
So that's the history of this manuscript.
Yeah.
We don't know the origins, we don't know where it came from,
Yeah.
and when it was.
Inside the text, I think you've gone through the whole text already.
Yeah.
Does the word Meherabad appear anywhere inside the text?
Never. No. Except in one place where the personal pronoun is there, I or something.
Ah,
Otherwise it's a sort of narration in third person or something.
but no Meher and no Baba.
No authorship,
Amazing.
no title, no end, no beginning, no date.
Eternal.
Yeah. So,
Well, good. Very, very good story and complete. I'm glad to know that.
so now this book has been finally edited. We did about 3 or 4 editings, and the translations were no end to our headaches, because to bring in the nuances and to present it in the English language with all those Gujarati idioms was extremely difficult. So we've tried to make the best possible thing, and we have been very transparent about any sort of what do we call editing that we have done in the text.
Yes.
Quick question, if I can, Don.
Go ahead.
When you and Ward did your 4 years of editing,
Yeah.
did you start with the one that had been typed up by the woman with Balnatu, or did you start with the version that had already been edited by Bal Kalchuri?
No, we had Bhau Kalchuri's edition with us. It's at the side. And we had the original thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you had both.
Both. So just to get the sort of work that Bhau did, it was a great help to us, because it had unraveled many of those things.
Good.
And Ward in his own way had simplified it a bit. So it was much easier to have them both together. But we were constantly, the main text was in front, this was on the side, the editing.
Okay.
And the text was there. But mind you, when I was doing this, then the original handwritten was not being accessed. So we thought that there might be some errors by Rhoda, who knows. So the original handwritten was given to Erico to scan them in his computer.
Yeah.
So they were scanned,
Nadell.
Eric Nada. And we had the scan of the original from which we did the direct edit.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So that there would be no errors.
Where is the discussion on, is this the book or is this not the book?
The only clue we have it is that Baba used to tell us off and on in Mandli Hall, in Guru Prasad or here, that what I'm giving to Bhav are 10% of the points. And we heard that also. So what Bhav says is quite authentic. So we don't know whether this is the book or this is exactly what has happened.
Yeah.
It's for you all to make the inference, whatever it is. And we've made all this very transparent and clear in our sort of long essay that was done by Ward. It gives all details of how this manuscript came about. So,
Well, this I can certainly say, I have not made a great point to read carefully the 30-some-odd pages that are given of Baba's handwriting.
yeah.
But it is certainly very apparent to me that Baba's style at that time of his life is very different from the style
That's right.
in the 50s and 60s.
Exactly, yeah.
This I know from my own experience with
He
Baba.
was moving with the times. You know.
So if this was Baba's book, if this is the book, then it is in a vastly different style than God Speaks.
It's a different angle of the same truth. There is the same style of repetition, page after page of repetition. So much so that black is black. It becomes so redundant.
Repetitive.
And so repetitive that it was difficult for us to repeat it like that.
Sure.
So Ward tried to polish it as much as he could to avoid showing it as same words repeated. But Baba did that to drive home the point of what we don't know.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
it is almost certainly because of the fact that what you saw in Baba's handwriting is repeated in the long manuscript. Certainly the long manuscript is by Baba.
Of course it is.
Yes.
The
It is
profoundness of that text,
Yeah.
no a person except who knows the thing could do
But
it.
I just have to say my own judgment for just way deep down inside of myself, when I read through the 30-some-odd pages, I said, this cannot be the book which is missing.
I don't
But that's my own personal view. I must say, you've certainly given quite an earful here.
I know.
And I appreciate it, Merwan.
I want to be
Greatly,
open about
greatly.
it. Yeah.
But these are important things that we're trying to get, the record of just how it went about. Because this is going to be terribly important in the future.
Yeah,
This
there's
sort
going
of
to
thing
be a
you and
furore when
Bound.
this book comes out. You know.
Yeah.
It's quite a startling different angle. Was that the box?
Merwan, I'm almost certain it was.
Well, that is the box. That is the box.
Well, it was, you mean the box that the book was in?
Yeah, that's what she told Balu
But the
about.
package was certainly no higher than that.
Yeah.
Wait, is this the box that you found this material in?
No.
No.
That was, and then I would say, Merwan, that the base of the package could have been no longer than that, no wider than that, and no taller than that.
That's right. This must be the old full scrap material. Because Padri said that he used to give sheets to Baba and supply the ink. And Baba was writing. This has started
Fragile.
Yes.
Is it about the size of what you think may have been wrapped up, Don?
I don't know, what was wrapped up was considerably smaller, both widthwise and lengthwise.
Okay.
We don't know. Anyway, that must be Baba's original handwriting, but this isn't. So you see, this is how the book begins. Now, This is the first page of the book. You follow. This is the handwriting. And these are diagrams and everything. It just begins series 1 regarding human beings and goes on like this. And these pages are numbered serially. See?
I see, yes.
And very neat handwriting. There are marginal notes. And so on. It goes on. Yeah.
Very neatly done.
Yeah, it goes on page after page after page.
Almost no corrections.
Yeah. So this is the original.
Good. I'm glad to see them. Thank you so much, Merwan.
This is the second part of this. The page number continues here
Yeah.
up to, I think, 211 or 212 pages. Handwritten. The page number handwritten. Then about 60 pages are blank in this book. Nothing. We thought
At the back.
in the middle.
In the middle.
In the middle. Interesting.
We thought that was the end of the text. Then when we saw the end, there was still some more writing. And there were 44 more pages of handwritten pages following after those blanks. And in those 44 pages is
The 37 from the In God's
39
Hand.
pages of In God's Hand.
Yeah.
And the same person who's written this also has written this. It's the same letters. But this has become so fragile that to open this scares us.
Don't try to
See,
do it even.
Yeah, it is like this. Yeah. It's the same thing. But the size of the letters has reduced. Here it was quite, to start with, rather big. And then but the same
More
scribes.
cramped.
Yeah, the same scribe seems to have continued. All right, it's a pleasure to share with Don, who has shared his life.
We've
The
been
world.
sharing a lot of things for a long time. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Don, for all the great work you've been doing for Baba. Jai Baba.